1. Mark.
Last year I worked at a summer camp, and I had to share with my roommate, who was a nice guy, except he could not wake up in the mornings. Not that that was a big deal, but for some unknown reason, he didn't bring his cell phone or an alarm clock to the camp, so he used my phone as an alarm clock, which was okay at first. Well, it was a bit annoying because he just took it without asking, and then he never gave it back. Then I found out he'd actually used it to make a few calls, and he hadn't asked me first. And that's when I ran out of patience. In the end, I took the battery out so he couldn't use it. It was kind of mean, but it was driving me crazy.
2. Hannah.
I had just started a new job in a new city, and I saw a posting on the internet for an apartment to share with someone in another department in my company. She seemed okay. We had similar tastes in music and movies and sense of humor. But after about a month, things weren't good. For example, she never took the trash out. Never. And it was always me who cleaned up after she had friends over for meals and stuff. I didn't mind that she had her friends over. They were fun. But it was always me who put the table and chairs back and everything. So anyway, we finally sat down and went over it all, and I said it wasn't working out. She just couldn't see what the problem was and said if I didn't like the way she lived, I could move out. And in the end, I did, because, I suppose I just couldn't put up with the mess any longer.
3. Emilio.
I had to share a hotel room with a colleague one time for 2 weeks. We were on a training program together, and I know I'm kind of a neat freak, but this guy was just amazing. I don't think he knew what a closet was. He would walk in the door and literally kick his shoes off in the air, and wherever they landed is where he left them. He never put them away in the closet. I kept finding his clothes, especially his dirty socks, under my bed, which was really annoying. He didn't pick up his dirty laundry off the floor, not once. I did it. I suppose I should have said something or come up with some rules or something about cleaning up our own mess, but I never said anything. But next time a training session comes up, I'll ask if I can have my own room.
4. Cassie.
When I was in college, I shared a dorm room with the worst roommate you can imagine. There was food and clothes everywhere. I mean, she didn't clean her mess up or pick her clothes up. She was even sleeping with leftover food under her bed, which was disgusting. So finally, I asked her to clean it up. And boy, she just lost her temper with me and said it was none of my business. And she called her mom. And I don't know what her mom said, but she didn't like it. So she was yelling and throwing stuff around. Finally, I called housing, and they moved her to another dorm.
Only children and siblings compare experiences growing up. 1. Osman.
People often say it must be stressful to live like that, but it wasn't. There was always somebody to play with and share secrets with and everything. I think it's important for kids to be around other kids. I guess the only thing was I used to long for somewhere quiet to study.
2. Sophia.
I suppose I was a bit lonely being by myself all the time. I was always having to find ways to occupy myself. And there was no one else to blame if I got into trouble. I couldn't get away with anything. It's hard to tell how it affected me, but it's not worth worrying about now, though.
3. Lily.
Looking back, I don't know how my mom did it as a single parent. It was impossible for her to have time for herself. Still, we always had enough to eat, nice clothes to wear, books to read, etc. We were very close. Maybe because it was just the three of us.
4. Sean.
Personally, I had no real problems growing up. I got lots of attention, but I guess there was a lot of pressure on me to do well in school. I mean, I don't feel I missed out on anything. I had lots of opportunities to socialize with other kids in school.
Speaker 1.
The unusual thing about us is the age range. At 16, I'm the youngest by 2 years, and the oldest player is in her 50s. You might think this would cause problems, but our love of the game brings us together. As the baby of the team, the older members have kind of taken me under their wing, really taken care of me. Winning is important, but we also have fun. After every game, we give an award for something silly. One player usually falls over on the pitch, and so she often wins it. I also learn all sorts of things from overhearing the older women's conversations.
Speaker 2.
I was asked to join the team to represent our class in a tournament. To be honest, I wasn't very keen, but the others stressed how much they needed a fourth member, so I gave in. It turned out that the team's general knowledge was really broad. We won by miles, and then I got hooked, and we haven't looked back. We now compete once a week. Older teams are surprised at how much we get right, not just the stereotypical teen stuff on music or sport. We've been very successful, and that's down to training. Yes, when our classmates are running around outside, we're asking each other questions.
Speaker 3.
My first love was gymnastics, so I've always had a sense of rhythm and timing. Then, 2 years ago, I was at a festival and I saw this group perform live and I thought, I have got to do that. As soon as I arrived home, I found a local club and asked if I could join. They were a talented and established team, and there I was, a complete beginner, so the answer was no. I was desperate to be allowed in, and eventually the director agreed to let me join. After hours of work and dedication, I'm a regular performer with the club now.
Speaker 4.
Everyone thinks that teens are glued to their screens all day, zapping aliens or zooming round a racetrack. Sure, I enjoy online gaming, but it can be a bit solitary. You can spend hours without speaking to anyone. That's why I formed the club, to bring people my age together to have fun in a different way. And we don't play just chess or cards. There's so much on offer now. It's not just moving a counter around a board and scoring points. I enjoy the more strategic challenges, where you need to come up with a solution to a problem and create a win-win situation.
Speaker 5.
The group is run by a lady who was a professional, so we take on quite ambitious projects. She pushes us hard, but then we get very good reviews. At first, I joined just to help out with costumes and lighting, things like that. It was just something different to do at weekends and in the holidays. And then someone dropped out and they needed a stand-in. It was only a small part, but I found I really enjoyed it, and now I'm a regular on stage. I don't think I'd ever want to do it as a career, but it's really helped build my confidence.
Speaker 1.
At school, I was always a bit of a loner. I didn't quite fit in somehow. But when I got into uni, I decided to join a choir. They became like a second family to me, and since then, I've never looked back. The choir had belief in me as a singer somehow. I had a good voice, and nothing else really mattered. It was an a cappella group, so we sang without any piano accompaniment. We even got chosen for a TV show, and I was the one who performed the solo. In my wildest dreams, I never thought I'd ever perform to an audience of millions.
Speaker 2.
Despite the fact that I can't sing to save my life, I'd always wanted to do something with music or rhythm in some way. My brother was a drummer in a band, and it must have been that influence that got me to sign up for percussion lessons. Do you know something? I think drum lessons should be compulsory for all young people. There's nothing like bashing away at a drum to get rid of all your worries. Now I'm a member of a drum circle, and we play at lots of venues at weekends. It's exhilarating, and the other members of the circle are amazing.
Speaker 3.
A couple of years ago, a friend taught me how to play a few simple chords on the guitar. Even though I'll never be really good at it, at least I was able to play along to the words I wrote. Songwriting for me is the way I express myself, and my friends who play in a band like what I write. I get a real buzz when I hear them singing my lyrics in concerts. My parents didn't believe me when I first told them about the songwriting. I was more into active things like sports at school, but they're really proud of their songwriter son.
Speaker 4.
The violin has been my instrument ever since I was small. Now that I'm at music college, it really is my whole life. But what has also made a huge difference is the fact that I belong to an international youth orchestra. We meet up in different countries and perform music together. The language barrier does cause some tricky moments, of course, but we all get along amazingly well despite that. Having friends from different cultures through a love for music really makes you appreciate and understand different lifestyles. We've even started exchanging visits to each other's families in the summer.
Speaker 5.
I've been through the usual years of piano lessons and exams, but I wanted to try something different. Then a friend of mine, who's a singer, asked if I could accompany her on the piano while she sang, and we could perhaps get around to playing somewhere together as a duo. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it. Not only was I playing some really nice music, but I was also supporting someone else rather than appearing solo in public. That I find rather stressful. We've now played several gigs around the local area, and I'm really happy about this new direction my music has taken me.
Living Life as a Spy. An excerpt from Stormbreaker by Anthony Horowitz.
The worst time to feel alone is when you're in a crowd. Alex Ryder was walking across the playground, surrounded by hundreds of boys and girls of about his own age. They were all heading in the same direction, all wearing the same blue and grey uniform, all of them thinking much the same thoughts. The last lesson of the day had just ended. Homework, tea and television would fill the remaining hours until bed. Another school day. So why did he feel so out of it, as if he were watching the last weeks of the term from the other side of a giant glass screen? Alex jerked his backpack over one shoulder and continued towards the bike shed. The bag was heavy. As usual, it contained double homework, French and history. He had missed 2 weeks of school, and he was having to work hard to catch up. His teachers had not been sympathetic. Nobody had said as much, but when he had finally returned with a doctor's letter, a bad dose of flu with complications, they had nodded and smiled, and secretly thought him a little bit pampered and spoiled. On the other hand, they had to make allowances. They all knew that Alex had no parents, that he had been living with an uncle who had died in some sort of car accident. But even so, 2 weeks in bed. Even his closest friends had to admit that was a bit much. Alex looked around him at the children streaming through the school gates, some dribbling footballs, some on their mobile phones. He looked at the teachers curling themselves into their second-hand cars. At first, he had thought that the whole school had somehow changed while he was away. But he knew now that what had happened was worse. Everything was the same. It was he who had changed. Alex was 14 years old, an ordinary schoolboy in an ordinary West London comprehensive. Or he had been. Only a few weeks ago, he had discovered that his uncle had been a secret agent working for MI6. The uncle, Ian Ryder, had been murdered, and MI6 had forced Alex to take his place. They had given him a crash course in SAS survival techniques and sent him on a lunatic mission on the south coast. He had been chased, shot at, and almost killed, and at the end of it, he had been packed off and sent back to school as if nothing had happened. But first, they had made him sign the Official Secrets Act. Alex smiled at the memory of it. He didn't need to sign anything. Who would have believed him anyway? But it was the secrecy that was getting to him now. Whenever anyone asked him what he had been doing in the weeks he'd been away, he'd been forced to tell them that he'd been in bed, reading, slouching around the house, whatever. Alex didn't want to boast about what he'd done, but he hated having to deceive his friends. It made him angry. MI6 hadn't just put him in danger. They'd locked his whole life in a filing cabinet and thrown away the key. He had reached the bike shed. Somebody muttered a goodbye in his direction and he nodded, then reached up to brush away the single strand of fair hair that had fallen over his eye. Sometimes he wished that the whole business with MI6 had never happened, but at the same time, he had to admit it, part of him wanted it all to happen again. Sometimes he felt that he no longer belonged in the safe, comfortable world of Brooklyn school. Too much had changed, and at the end of the day, anything was better than double homework.
Speaker 1.
The teacher sets different tasks each week. Sometimes there's a model in a particular pose, sometimes we do portraits. Accurate representation is not the only thing that matters. Sometimes we use ink and the teacher pushes us to be brave and not worry that we won't be able to rub out mistakes. This class is part of my effort to discover different things I'm good at. That's why for the last 3 years I've tried a lot of classes with various friends: drama, photography, country dancing. The big factor in my enjoyment of this class is that, to my total surprise, I found I'm very able and can produce work I'm pleased with. It's unexpected. I wasn't aware I had this in me.
Speaker 2.
I was finding it difficult to get out of bed at weekends, and I was spending a lot of time on social media and online games. I realised I was becoming antisocial and depressed and needed to change. My aim was to become more energetic, more sociable and healthier. I started going to a gym, but it was dull. Then I found a group that meets in local parks and we work out together every evening. I've got to know some of the people very well. Without their encouragement, I couldn't have continued. We really push each other when we're not doing our best or thinking of giving up. My strength, flexibility and stamina have increased in just 2 months, and I am a lot more sociable.
Speaker 3.
There are 4 of us in green luggage and we're all good friends. We play in youth clubs or at parties. We even get paid sometimes for our performances. I didn't like violin lessons at school, but my parents insisted. And actually, it has turned out for the best. All those lessons and practice in the school orchestra mean I can now play anything. Country dance music, romantic songs. My parents would still prefer me to play in an orchestra, but I just say no. You see, I've become stronger since being in green luggage and I don't let anyone push me around. I love what I do, though I don't plan to turn it into a career.
Speaker 4.
On Saturdays, I work in a sports shop to make money for travelling. Last year, I saved enough for a trip to France. I cycled and camped and met some great people. You can read all about it on my blog, by the way. This summer, I'm spending 2 weeks camping in Greece. I always keep a diary during my trips, then write articles about them for my college magazine. And as I mentioned, I also have my own travel blog, which is turning out to be quite popular with students all over Europe. Writing about my trips has shown me that one day I could turn this hobby into my ideal way of earning a living.
Speaker 5.
I enjoy drawing and painting, but the great thing about a camera is that you only need one piece of equipment, although you can do a lot on a computer to change an image if you want to. I take my camera wherever I go and use it whenever I get the chance. I like to snap people, buildings, sea, sky, patterns, shapes. For me, it's a way of creating something new and unique. I don't go for the obvious angle or the obvious pose. I want people to look at my pictures and be amazed when they see something different. I don't understand those people you see at tourist sites all taking the same picture. What's the point?
Today, I'd like to describe the company retreats we can create for your business. A company retreat can be described as any time managers and employees take a break from their daily work. They typically spend time in a pleasant location, away from the office, participating in activities that help build stronger relationships. We offer a wide range of options, from 1-day to 7-day retreats. If you'd like a cabin in the mountains, we'll arrange that. If you think your team would prefer a beach-like setting, we'll assist with that too. The main benefit of a company retreat is that it builds trust among your staff. Our events are designed to encourage communication and problem-solving in a relaxed environment. One recent client said our retreat contributed to much higher levels of collaboration, even several months after the retreat was over. Another client reported they had so much fun that they were planning to return next year. By the way, having fun is another upside of our events.
Once we get everyone together in one place, what are we supposed to do with them? I'm concerned that my employees will be bored.
That's where our greatest strength lies. We organize activities that appeal to all personality types. So, say one group wants to go on a hike and another prefers to play a game. We'll oversee both groups, making sure each one has a specific common goal to reach. Then, the groups have to report back to each other, demonstrating how they worked as a team during their activities.
I tried to organize a retreat myself once, and it was a disaster. It was nearly impossible to get everyone together at the same time.
Yes, that's a valid concern. One tricky issue with retreats is scheduling. We'll work with you to choose the best possible time frame and help you come up with scheduling solutions. Our job is to help you take the pressure off yourself. That way, you can focus on building relationships among your staff and maybe even have a little fun yourself. I'd like to point out another potential problem. When employees are asked to take part in a retreat, they often worry that their work will suffer. They wonder who will keep an eye on their clients while they're gone. We'll work with you so you can assure them that there won't be negative consequences to attending a company retreat.
So, Shelby, Raphael, you're interested in job sharing?
I'm not sure it's for me, but I'm interested in finding out more about it.
Yeah, as we get closer to graduation, it's starting to interest me. Could you tell us more about it?
Of course. It's an interesting idea worth considering. It's when two people share the same job and they each work fewer hours. The main benefit is that the employees have more time for themselves. For example, it's perfect for people who have young children or for someone who is starting a business at home.
Or for someone in a band, like me. It would be great to only work in the afternoons, especially on the days after late-night performances. And for someone just starting a job, another plus is that you could really learn a lot from your job-sharing partner.
But the downside is that you may never see the person you're job sharing with. That could be frustrating.
Well, one tricky issue is deciding exactly how to divide up the job, who takes on what aspects of the job. But all of that can usually be worked out, especially if you have a good boss or manager who oversees the work.
Yeah, and it gives you the advantage of doing the parts of a job you're best at. That seems like a good thing.
I'd be concerned that I'd get stuck with all of the awful work, especially as a new employee.
That would be something to be careful about.
The upside is that with more time off during the week, people aren't so stressed at work. At least that's what I read in an article.
Yeah, but one potential problem is money. Sharing work means sharing pay.
That's a good point, Shelby. Job sharing definitely isn't for everyone, but for someone like Raphael, who has other interests and commitments outside of a day job, it could be a nice option. And you never know, it might be something you'll want to do in the future.
How are things? Is Brittany still living with you?
Yeah, she is. But, to be honest, things are difficult. There's a lot of friction at the moment.
Why am I not surprised?
I know. You've been through all this with Nick, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
What I'm saying is, it's hard for us to talk to her right now, and it's costing us a fortune.
You know, when Nick was home after the first month, we stopped helping him out financially. We just refused to lend him money.
To tell you the truth, I'm not sure that we could do that. Her friends all get help from their parents, so...
And he had to buy his own little extras. We paid for his food, and that was all. He had to buy his own clothes and things like shampoo and everything.
Well, that sounds reasonable. The thing is, she doesn't seem very motivated right now. I don't mean that she doesn't want a job, but she seems to keep putting it off, and quite frankly, she should be sending off her resume to lots of places. Instead, she's watching movies all day.
Well, why not have a rule that says she has to apply for one job every single day? That's what we did. We just insisted. And he did. Well, except on the weekends.
Yeah? And he's got a job now, right? So it worked. That sounds like a good idea.
Right. And does she have a date to move out?
No.
That was another thing. And I have to say it was the best thing we did. We said to him, you have 6 months to get a job and to find a place to rent.
Boy, you're tough. I honestly don't know that we could ask her to leave. But in any case, you should go on TV advising parents about this stuff.
Well, I'm not saying that we wanted to throw him out of the house, but we wanted him to get on his feet. In other words, just to be independent.
I have to say, that sounds appealing.
Oh, and then when he did move out, we changed the locks.
You didn't.
We sure did. I'm not saying he's not welcome. We love to see him, and his friends, too. But what I mean is, he comes as our guest. Frankly, it's tough love, but honestly, it works.
You're listening to the Ask Allison show. Call in and tell me your complaint. Let's get started. Mark is our first caller today. Hi, Mark. What's your complaint?
Hi. Thanks for taking my call. My brother Chris comes over for dinner a few times a month. I mean, it's just casual, pizza or pasta, nothing fancy. But the thing is, he never shows up on time, which is really annoying. I do the cooking, and then I end up waiting to eat. And another thing is, I have to do the dishes every single time. He never helps me clean up afterward. He acts like he's in a restaurant. I mean, I know he's family, but...
It's no fun having a guest who always takes and never gives. It's important for your brother to know that this is not okay. Since he comes to your home regularly, it's time to say something. Just say, Chris, I always look forward to having you over, but it would be great if you could arrive on time and help me clean up after dinner. Okay, our next caller is Laura, and she has a few problems with a friend.
Hi, here's my complaint. So, my roommate, Mariella, and I do everything together. But we have another friend, Carrie, who lives across town. The problem is she's always inviting herself to do things with us. So if she hears about our plans, she'll show up wherever we are and tag along with us. Sometimes for the whole weekend. We've tried telling her gently that she's not welcome unless she's invited, but she doesn't get it. I'm not saying we want to drive her away completely, but we want to do things on our own too sometimes. So how do we get her off our backs without offending her?
Since you've tried to tell Carrie gently, you must now tell her clearly. Simply say that you don't want to hurt her feelings, but sometimes you and Mariella want time together to hang out by yourselves, without her. In other words, don't be too gentle. Be firm. Berto is our next caller. What's the problem, Berto?
Well, it's my girlfriend. We've been going out for 6 months now, and she's always wanting us to do things together. I work really long hours, and I feel as if she's putting pressure on me all the time. She's driving me crazy. I never have any free time for myself or for my friends. How can I make her understand that I need time for myself, too?
Berto, have you tried going over this with your girlfriend? I think that you both need to work on this together to find a solution. You need to find a balance. Quite frankly, your girlfriend needs to find something else to do so you can have some time to yourself and also find time to be with your friends. Schedule a couple of regular date nights, say Wednesdays and Fridays. Tell your girlfriend you'll see her then, and tell her clearly that Saturday night is your time. Then you'll still have time for yourself and for your other friends. Well, that's all we have time for today. Thanks for calling Ask Allison. I'm Allison Duffy, and I look forward to chatting with you soon.